There you go. Okay, so to recap, we have the arithmetic mean, right? Line, trimmed mean, and the weighted mean. And I will tell you how to distinguish, right? The arithmetic mean is just finding the average, right? You basically say sum divided by data points, okay? That's basically the arithmetic mean. The trimmed mean, right? Remove low and high, right? Low, high values. That's what the trimmed mean is. Why are we doing that? Because we seek to remove the outlier or the outliers. Okay, so we have to cut top and bottom, right? A weighted mean, multiply, right? A numerator, you have this times this plus this times this, and that can continue on, right? Like that's how you know it's weighted mean if the top has things multiplying. So these are your three different means that we've talked about in this unit, right? And today we're focusing on this one, on the weighted mean, okay? Okay, weighted mean, the data points are not all of equal value. For example, a teacher might assign different weights to different parts of the student grade. Assignments might be worth 45 of the final grade. A quiz might be worth 15, an exam worth 40%. In this case, each data point is worth a percentage of the total, right? So here we go. Let's do the example. Frida earned grades of 85, 72, 65, and 90% on 4 tests in one term in her math class. So that class, all it had was 4 tests, right? If each test were worth the same percentage of her final grade, what would be her final grade? So they're asking for the arithmetic mean. Okay, there is no weight. Nothing is worth more than the other. They're all worth the same. So for A here, we would simply go, well, it's 85% plus 65% plus, sorry, I forgot the 72, plus the 90. And how many numbers are we adding? We're adding 4. Make sure you do the top first, okay? And then that is 312% over 4, which is 78%. That's the average mark, okay? That's final grade. We call that final grade, but it is really your average over the semester, okay? Now let's talk about B, okay? So make sure you write this down and then listen. What was her term mark if the first test, right? The first test was worth 10%. Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this 10 and put it up here. The second and third were each worth 20%. So you're going to go say, hey, they have weights attached to them. 20, 20, right? And then the fourth test was worth 50%. So you've got the weights. So this almost like it turns into a table, right? Where they would have the weight and the grades, right? And all of a sudden you have a table here, lo and behold, right? So the weight is here. So when you see a table like that, you're gonna have to multiply the two for sure. Okay, for sure. And this is a final mark situation. So B, we're gonna do the weighted mean. This is a weighted mean situation. So we're gonna go 10%. Well, let's start with the 85. 85% times 10%, right? 85 times 10, that comes from these two. And then you're going to add 72% on the second test, and that one was worth 20%. Then we're going to take the score on the third test, That one was also worth 20%, plus scoring 90% on the last test, and that test was worth 50% of the year. So the last one is worth a lot more than the other ones, right? It's half of your grade is determined by the last test. What comes down here? It is going to be these numbers here, the 10, the 20, what is it out of? It's 100, right? 50, 20, and 20, that's 90, plus 10 is 100. So you have to divide everything by 100%. You can also just turn these to decimals, and then don't worry about the dividing by 100. But try to find out what this is. This you can actually do. If you have a decent calculator, you can do that in one shot, and I encourage you to do that. I'll give you a little bit of time, but you're supposed to get this divided by 100. So first figure out the top, right? You can actually go 85 times 10 plus 72 times 20 if you have a decent calculator that shows you what you're entering. So your final mark is 80.90%. Okay? So why is that? Why is this mark higher than the average calculated in A? Right? Well, if you think about it, it's because, right, on the one that was weighted the heaviest, which is weighted 50%, he scored the highest on that one, the one that matters the most, right? And so that is bringing your average up, right? So from 78, you went to 80, almost 81%, right? So almost 3% higher than before. So that's the difference there. And let's keep going on the next page. 126. So the top half is blank. We'll leave it like that. So you go to question 4. Actually, I think I'm going to skip that one as well. I'm going to skip this for now. Okay, so just put a star on it. I'll come back to that if time allows, because this is a little bit of a longer example, which it might be a bonus, but I would not expect you to get that on a regular. Okay, let's go to 5. And 5 is what I call always backwards question. Backwards always means they'll give you the mean. You have to work backwards to find out one of the missing pieces. And we've done that before with just the regular mean, right? Okay, Addy wrote 3 math tests, each worth 20% of the final grade. He got marks of 70, 75, 80, and 86, and they're each worth 20%. What must he get on the final exam worth 40% if he wants a final grade of 86%? Okay, so this is a question a lot of you have. For me, what do I need to get this mark as a final mark, right? So this is the weighted mean. They're giving you like the average based on the weights that are associated with it. Okay, so we know that weighted mean would have to be the first test, which is 75%, which is worth 20%. So I would always put the worth of the category right next to it, plus 80% on the second test. That one was also worth 20%, plus 86 on the third. It was also worth 20%, plus what do you need to score? So we're going to call that X on the exam, which is worth 40%. And all of that is going to be divided by 100. 100%. Because questions like these, right, if it's a mark, you always want it out of 100%. Now you plug in the final grade of 86, we're going to plug that in there. Okay? So we have 86% is equal to, I will figure out what this is already, clean this up. Like these three expressions, I can actually figure out what that is. And that is 4,820 plus 40x. Okay, we're just going to call that 40x because these are together. You cannot do anything. You can't add them to this. You can't add the 40 to this because it's attached to the x there. That has to be multiplied. It's a placeholder. Okay, all over 100. Okay. Now, where did this come from? It came from them giving us the weighted mean. You want to get rid of the 100 here, that is dividing. We multiply both sides by 100, but nothing really happens on this side in terms of calculations. It happens on the other side here. When you do this, you can cancel out this one and this one, which is what you want. You want to clean this side up. And on the other hand, you're left with 8,600, and then you just rewrite that without the 100 underneath it, like that. And we're going to continue over here. I'm going to just show my step here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take 4820 away from both sides. That cancels out, right? So you end up with 3780 is equal to 40x, like that. Because you've taken away this from this side, turning that into 0, so it's gone. You're left with 40x only. And on the other side, you actually just computed that and got 3780. Now your next step is going to be 40 is multiplying x. Here you have to divide. So you slowly undo what has been done to x, right? Cancel that out. X is equal to, you divide these, you get 94.50% needed on the final exam to score 86 as a final mark. So there. So this is probably good to have on your study sheet, a question like this. And how do you know it's backwards? Well, they give you the weighted mean and they're going to ask you for one of these in here, right? And it's a little different because there are weights attached to each test, each category, right? So it's a little bit more tedious than the other, just working with a regular mean, median, mode, right? Okay, let's keep going. Now we're going to go back to the regular ones, okay? Okay, so question 6. Jeffrey sells computers and other equipment at an electronics store. He is compiling statistics, so it's giving it away already what unit this is from, right? On their spending habits of customers. The table below shows customers spending rounded to the nearest $100. So you have the spending, right? This is how much they're spending, and this is percentage of people doing that, right? And here you're thinking, okay, I remember Mr. Dirksen saying if it's a table, you multiply. Okay, you're going to multiply. So yes, you're right. So what you do here is you recognize its weighted mean, right? This tells you that it's weighted mean. And so you know you're going to have to multiply these two and add them up, okay? But what happens with the denominator? That's the problem. That's when you read here. It says mean spending per customer. Spending per customer. So I don't know about you, but spending is dollars, right? So the dollar will definitely not be in the denominator because that's what they mentioned first. It's the customer, and in this case, it's percentage, right? Goes in the denominator. So this will be dollars, and percentage will go at the bottom. That is important to remember. So these percentages you're going to add and place them in the denominator. Okay? So that goes there. That's important to remember because the top you know you're going to have to multiply and add, but it's always knowing what goes in the denominator that throws students off. So here it is. Weighted mean is 100 times 28% plus 200, and make sure you write small because otherwise you're going to run out of room. 500 times 15, 800 times 7, 1,000 times 2. You can do, yeah, I'm forgetting to put brackets here. And then 1,200 times 4, 1,300 times 3, 1,500, and I'm already really tight with space here. And 2,000 times 1, right there at the end, 2,000 times 1. So I've essentially multiplied every pair, and now I'm going to divide it by, you can do this, it's just, you got to be very careful where everything goes, right? So we're going to add the 25, 38, all of that down here. So 28 plus 38 plus 15 plus 7 plus 2 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 numbers there. And let's see if you can do this, okay? I'm going to give you 2 minutes or so to do this yourself, right? Calculate what the top number is supposed to be, and then calculate the bottom number and come up with it, because I need you to be able to do that, right? So I'm not going to give you the answer just yet. Come up with those numbers, okay? Using a calculator, use your phone, whatever you need to do. If you're using a phone, you might have a hard time doing this. All right, drum roll. The top should get you 39,200. And the bottom 100, which shouldn't be a surprise, right? We're expecting, if they're talking percentages, right, and to represent your customers, that it should add up to 100. So when you divide these, you get 392 exactly. But this is dollars, right? Like the top number is actually dollars. And this is per customer. Okay? So that you got to make sure you have your units right at the end. So the key is whatever follows, if they talk about per, right, per whatever, that is what gets added up at the denominator and no multiplying there. The only time you multiply is in the numerator, and you add up all your results, okay? All right, next. Now we're going to talk about repeat. So far we dealt with percentages, and you're like, this isn't the final mark, right? But it dealt with percentages. So you still kind of treat it the same way as a final mark. Now we're going to talk about repeated items. Okay, so things that repeat. Okay. And I did give you notes on that yesterday. I'll give you an example. Okay, the weighted mean calculation can be used in another situation where there's repetition of entries, right? Repetition of entries. The end result is the same, right? Same as the arithmetic mean, but the calculation may be easier. Okay, so this is the same as calculating the arithmetic mean, but the calculation may be easier if you're using the method I'm going to show you today, right? In her job as a server at a restaurant, Glenna earned 2 tips of $6, 3 of 8, 3 of 10, and 6 of $12, right? Calculate the mean tip using 2 different methods. So I think we have some room. Yeah, we have some room at the back. So we're going to do the first method here and the second method back on the back side of this. Okay. So what I want you to first of all think of is this question does not use the per, right? It just used the mean tip. What would a mean tip be if you have tips and dollars? How would you expect that answer to look at the end? Well, wouldn't we agree that you would want to know the dollars per tip, right? That's how you would want this to be. So the number of tips is going to be down in the denominator. So sometimes they use the per, sometimes not, and you have to kind of like which make more sense to be in the denominator. Okay, so method 1, they want us to use 2 methods. So this would just be like this, watch. It's a little tedious, but hang in there. So 2 tips of $6, so you'd go 6 plus 6. 3 tips of $8, so you'd go plus 8 plus 8 plus 8. 3 tips of $10, you would go 10 plus 10 plus 10. 6 tips of 12, so you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Divided by how many numbers did you add, right? So you go 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And that adds up to 138 divided by 14, which is 986 per tip. 986 per tip or per customer. That is the tedious way. That's the way you don't want to do this, right? There's a quicker way of doing it because know that there's 2 of these, 3 of those, right? 3 of the 10s and 6 of the you can identify the groupings, right? So we're going to do it using the formula I just showed you. So let's go to the back side of this book and just quickly make a chart, okay? Dollar and number of tips. So the $6 one showed up twice. The $8 tip, there were 3 of those. $10, we had 3 of as well. And the $12 tip, we had 6 of those. The reason why I'm doing a chart is because that's how oftentimes that's how the province presents questions to you. So the weighted mean, we're going to do weighted mean because there's repeating things, right? Like there are 2 tips of $6, right? So you go 6 times the repetition, right? This $6 plus $8 times, how many times does that happen? 3. Then you have $10, it happens 3 times. You have $12, that happens 6 times. And on a table, students oftentimes don't know which one to now put in the denominator. And remember, the mean tip, right, is going to be dollars per tip. So it's the number of tips that you're going to add up at the denominator right here, and which will also be 14. So you're going to get the same answer as before, You're going to get 138 in the numerator and 14 in the denominator, and that's still 986 per tip. I forgot to write at the top method 2, weighted mean. Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask you to try a question right now. So we're going to go skip 7. I want you to go straight to 8. Do now. Okay, I want you to do question 8 and 9. 8 and 9. So there's question 8 here and 9 on the back side. Hi there. Hi. And let's give that a go. All right. So Josh wants to know how many sports students in his school practice. He did a survey and found that, it's not a table, it's not a chart, but you should recognize, right? 25 do one sport, 75 two sports, and so forth. The list goes on. So you should kind of identify that this is a weighted mean situation. No percentages, but repetition, okay? He wants to know how many sports, what is the average number of sports practiced by a student? So there's the highlighted part. You want to know the average number of sports per student. Sports per student. That's what you should remember. So the first thing they mention, right, sports, it's going to be top. That's going to be your final answer at the top. And students go in the denominator. Okay, the second word is always in the denominator. So now you know out of the two numbers, right, which one is going to go in the denominator. It's going to be all the students added up. So let's calculate this. Weighted mean, you know that your numerator is just going to be this times that, right? So it's 25 times 1 plus. And it doesn't matter which one goes which, as long as you multiply them. 32 do 3 sports, and 5 students do 4 sports. Okay, divided by the number of students. So you're going to go here, it's 25 plus 75 plus 32 plus 5, right? So you just add up all the students. No multiplication in the denominator. Okay, and when you do that, you get 200, where am I here? 291 at the top, and you get 137 at the bottom. And now you know that this is number of sports and this is number of students, right? So when you divide that, you get 2.12, which is approximately 2 sports per student. There it is. You need to round this one because it's number of sports, right? You can't, but always write down first what it is as a decimal, then round it to the nearest whole number in this case. Okay. So you need to show your work. You can't just tell me, miraculously come up with 2. It needs to be shown with steps. Okay. So watch out for the wording. That's going to guide you as to which numbers go in the denominator added, because that is important. If you had added the number of sports, like 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, you would have gotten a completely different answer. It would have been off. Okay. So I'm telling you what I've observed over the years, students, where they make mistakes. Okay. All right, here. Luann creates pottery that she sells at craft fairs around Saskatchewan. At one craft fair, she sold 5 items for 25 each, 12 items. So you should notice that this is repetition. No percentages here, right? what is the mean cost per item? There it is again. Where's my highlighter? You want the mean, which is the average cost, which is in dollars per item, right? So you know that it's going to be dollars and item, number of items, right? Because it's the second thing here. So the weighted mean is going to be you multiply the top, right? You just go ahead and multiply those two numbers. 12 times 16, 3 times 21, 6 times 14, and 1 times 45, which is just 45, right? And this is the important part. Which one goes? It's the number of items. So it's this one. It won't always be the first thing, right? Like it depends. Just read carefully. So it's 5 plus 12 plus 3 plus 6 plus 1. And if you type all this in, you should get a number, which is 509 over 27. So she sold 27 items. I hope that is clear, right? Over the time, over the course. And that ends up being, and remember it's dollars, right? At the top, 1885 per item is the mean or the average, right? Notice also that this over here, like if we want to go back talking about trimmed mean, this is an outlier, the $45 item, right? So one could also blend in trimmed mean here, should you be including the 45, right? What happens if you remove the 45, which is on the upper end? Then your average is going to go down, which is probably most likely representing the true, what actually happens most of the time. Okay. All right. So here it is. I'll tell you what's going to happen. We have just over 10 minutes, right? So I want you to do practice your skills. So do all, right? So that's question 1 all the way to 5, I believe it goes. 1 to 5. So questions 1 to 5 under practice your skills. And tomorrow you can bet that I'm going to AC you on be ready for trimmed mean and weighted mean. Okay. So when you come online, I'm going to ask you to upload it. And by the way, when you do practice your skills, it goes back to trimmed mean and weighted mean. So you have everything here. Okay. And I will post the answer key to this as well today so that you can check yourself. I will not necessarily go over that, but you should check because the test is coming up on Monday and you want to be ready because tomorrow we're covering percentile rank. It's one more thing. And after that, we're done. Okay. So things are going to go rather quickly.